Nate Coulter. Everybody knows that name, but can you put a face or point a finger at who Mr. Nate Coulter is or what he does? The reason for the quandary is because he's done everything and been everywhere, from academia to politics. This educated and experienced lawyer is now the face of CALS, Central Arkansas Library System. After graduating from Harvard Law in 1985, Nate clerked for a judge, became assistant legal counsel for Governor Bill Clinton, and maintained a long trial lawyer career. First in his own private practice and later partnering with Wright Lindsay Jennings firm and last Wilson Engstrom, Coram and Coulter. In 1993, Nate was the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor of Arkansas. We'll find out about that. Today, since 2016, Mr. Coulter has been the executive director for CALS, Central Arkansas Library System, the public library system that serves Perry and Pulaski counties. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the table the community-minded, smart, and genuine Mr. Nate Coulter.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Thank you, Gray, for letting us do this on your hour here, brother, your nickel.
Sure.
And it is kind of a scary thought, though, that if I'm the face of that wonderful library that's been there a long time and will be there long after I'm gone, I hope it has other faces, too.
How long has it been there?
1910, in the original Carnegie iteration that was downtown, this great champion of libraries, Andrew Carnegie, donated millions and millions of dollars in the early part of the 20th century to create libraries everywhere. And we were one of the fortunate communities in Little Rock to get one of those libraries. And he built libraries everywhere. And that library was owned Louisiana, I believe, and then it was replaced. Unfortunately, the building was torn down. And the replacement library is there on the corner of Louisiana and 8th Street, I think it is, and that was the library until about 1996 when it relocated to the old Phones Brothers warehouse where it's been since then. And
that was a great repurposing of that building.
Yeah,
though.
and at the time, we forget, there really wasn't a River Market area down there at that point. They were starting the River Market Pavilion, I think opened about the same time, but the library had been committed to coming there for 2 or 3 years after the voters had authorized the bond issue that paid for building that or restoring that old building. So the library's had a long history, and it's a great institution.
That's neat. I like the way it says all the names of the philosophers and Carnegie across the top of it. Yeah, they did a great job doing that. In 1985, he went to Harvard Law. That is not cheap. They don't give scholarships.
Well, somebody asked me, excuse me, just this week asked me, did I have a big student debt? I said, no, I had a great father who worked 7 days a week in his 3 small-town furniture stores selling appliances and carpet and TVs and the like. And he worked, I think he realized later in his life, he worked too much that he didn't spend enough time with his 3 sons. He regretted, like a lot of us do, parents do when we get older. But he did educate all of us in a great way, and he was devoted to education. Both of my parents were really, by a lot of Arkansas standards, very fortunate to have college educations. They graduated from university in the mid-1950s, got married that year.
Both of your parents?
But for the 4 or so years my dad spent in the U.S. Navy as a helicopter squadron officer, they really lived all their lives in Arkansas. But they were educated, and that was a great thing for me and my siblings because they instilled in us the appreciation for libraries and reading and trying to get an education.
So what did you say your dad did? He was a helicopter. He wasn't a pilot. He was a squadron leader.
He was a squadron officer, yeah, but he was not the pilot. And, and as far as I can remember, I don't think he ever got in an airplane after I was about 3 or 4 years old. I don't know what he learned in helicopters, but it kept him from flying. He didn't like to fly.
But he didn't like to fly.
Did not like to fly.
He's in the business for years, and he doesn't like to fly.
Well, I guess, maybe helicopters have a smaller margin of error.
Yeah,
and if
you just drop out of the sky.
Right. And so that may have chilled his interest in aviation.
But don't they have ejection seats?
I don't know. He always just talked about flying over the Atlantic and the Caribbean looking for Soviet submarines with sonar and the worry about sharks, that you could see the sharks circling around the sonar device that they dropped in the water. And he said, it was not good. He said once there was a poor pilot who had gone down, and the sharks
ate him.
Got him. Yeah. So, but anyway, back to happier things. He was he was a successful small town Main Street business leader in Nashville, Arkansas, where I grew up. He had a store in the Queen, and then one in Glenwood. He had 3 sons.
Like a dry goods store?
And these were furniture and home furnishing stores. They sold carpet, TVs, appliances, furniture, dinette, suits. And most of what I learned about real life, I learned from being a delivery boy for my dad's furniture store when I got to be 14.
Yeah.
So he knew the labor laws, the child labor laws allowed you to work your kids when they turned 14.
That's right.
So I started working on weekends after football season and after school. And that was a lot. I learned a lot of things delivering furniture across 2 or 3
think
counties.
we do not do a service to our children by letting them not work late in life. I also began working at 14, and it's just a great time to start honing your social skills and learning work ethics.
Yeah, and one of the things I've realized now as I've gotten into my 7th decade, I guess if you're in your early 60s, you're in your 7th decade.
No, you're in your 6th.
Sure.
Well, that first decade was 0 to 10.
Yeah,
wasn't
I
it?
think it's
Oh.
technically your 7th.
It's scarier to say 7.
Really?
Yeah, it's discouraging.
You're bumming me out over here.
But one of the things that I'm sure as a 16-year-old, I thought I was so much smarter than these guys I worked with.
I know, right?
Who were delivering furniture with me. And we would go to the great day was when you would come in a hot summer day and you'd get a assignment to drive to Shreveport and pick up a load of refrigerators or something. So it was basically going to kill the whole day from Nashville. But I realize now that I learned a lot from these guys because although they didn't end up with the kind of education that my father and mother afforded me, they did have a lot of smarts and they were insightful. And hanging around them on the dock and making deliveries on country roads in southwest Arkansas was a good education.
So you got both sides of your brain developed at a young age, education and common sense.
Wisdom, as some people call it.
I can only say I have common sense because I don't have a lot of education. Everybody that ever listened to my radio show knows that. But
well, I would say I got the opportunity to get wiser and be educated. I'm not sure I always fully availed myself of those people around me who were there to teach me. I tried, but it wasn't for lack of opportunity or exposure to
so how did you pick Harvard School and being a lawyer?
There is a story that will sound sort of hackneyed or cliched, but I had literally a little old lady English teacher, and she was not old, I'm sure, by my standards now. She would have probably been in her 50s when she was teaching 11th grade English in Nashville, Arkansas. And she called me up to her desk one day. She said, "Where are you going to college? You thinking about that?" I said, "No, ma'am, not really." And she said, "Well, why don't you think about going somewhere different?" I said, "Well, my parents went to Fayetteville. I'll probably go to Fayetteville." And she said, "Well, why don't you think about going someplace far away just see what you can do?" And I said, "Well, like where, Miss Bird?" "Why don't you go to Harvard?" I had no idea where that was. I knew on Saturdays, if you were interested in college football, as I was in high school, that you had to watch through all these earlier East Coast scores from places like Harvard or Holy Cross or Colgate or Cornell. And I didn't know anything about any schools on the East Coast. But Miss Bird was the sort of teacher that when 17-year-old boys got loud, she didn't have to raise her voice. She just looked at them, and we listened. And when she said, "You need to go think about going someplace else," I said, "Okay, all right, well, show me how to do that." And then all along it was, "Well, I'll do this to appease Miss Bird, but I don't know if I really want to do that. But I'll just go along with her because I wanted to satisfy or please her and make her happy." And then once I was admitted, I realized what a wonderful opportunity that was. So
You got admitted.
I didn't want to pass on that. But there were times when I was wondering about the wisdom of Miss Bird's advice. But
why?
Well, I was from a small town, and I'd been
a warm small town. Now you're in Massachusetts, freezing to
right,
death.
and it's a lot busier and crowded, and people are not as their folkways are not as friendly. And
so for Harvard Law School, do you just go 4 years for an
that's
undergrad?
3 years. You went 4 years for undergrad and 3 years. So I had too much of a good thing. 7 years in Cambridge was a lot.
So then you came back and you own your own practice.
Well, I actually first came back and worked for Judge Isley, probably as a federal law clerk. Best job I ever had, because when you're a law clerk for a federal judge, lawyers return your calls. When you're practicing law, they don't necessarily do that all the time, but they want to know what the federal judge has to say about their case, so they would return my calls. And then I went into private practice and had a couple of hiatuses when I was dabbling with politics. And as one friend later said, "Nate, you have a mandate from the voters to practice law," after I'd lost an election.
Oh, nicely said.
Yeah, right.
A mandate from the voters to practice law.
So
That's
I
a
went back to
nice way of saying,
practicing
it's too
law,
bad
yes.
you lost.
Right.
Yeah.
So do federal judges have to worry about their safety?
I think so. I think in a lot of ways, probably a lot of judges have to worry about their safety. State judges, circuit judges, particularly those maybe who deal with domestic matters, sometimes are subjected to people at their worst. But I think all judges have a legitimate degree of anxiety about their safety, and I think they take precautions.
And their family's safety.
Yes. I think someone told me recently that one of my friends who's a federal judge doesn't open her mail because their mail goes to some other place, so they just don't. There's a little risk that they can eliminate like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
smart, like a P.O. box or something.
I think so, or maybe it goes to the post office, the courthouse.
Mm-hmm. So practicing trial law is tough. You got to really prepare. And don't you have to get up and make speeches and pace in front of a jury? In trial law, jury law, I mean, don't you have to?
Did you ever see My Cousin Vinny? That's
yes.
That's what a lot of trial lawyers do. But
like 3 times I've seen that show, like 3 times. It's great.
The hard part about trying lawsuits is that they're never alike, and no matter how long you do it, there are 1,000 things you worry about not quite working the way you've prepared for them to work, and the stress of that doesn't seem to get any better no matter how many times you've done it. So the learning curve remains pretty steep, or the anxiety and the stress of it. So when I decided after I'd turned 50 that I was going to look to do something else that was maybe a little less adversarial
and not as much
stressful.
work to get preparation.
Yeah, most people are going to work whatever job they have at whatever level their personality makes them work. They're going to try to be prepared. I still do that. I probably work as hard now as I did as a trial lawyer, but the stress is different. I don't have to be worried about clients being disappointed in outcomes of cases where I've been their lawyer for a year or so. You worry about other things, but you work hard if you're just inclined to. I used to tell my kids, they're now adults, but I'd say, I got half of my dad's work ethic, and I think sometimes y'all got half of mine. And they didn't like that in backward compliment, but my dad had a very stringent work ethic, and I was fortunate enough to be around that and picked up some of that. So whatever job I've had, I think I've tried to work it pretty hard. But lawyering is rough because some people are always in their, especially if you're a trial lawyer, are always in a bad place. They've either been sued or they need to sue someone. And I used to tell people it's not a good way to resolve things. It's better than more primitive ways of fighting or drawing derringers at 12 paces on the banks of the river. But it is a rough tool to try to get something approximating justice, and people most of the time feel like they had to accept something they didn't want in order to get something else they did want, and it's a rough outcome. So people are not always entirely happy, but I think it's so much better than other ways humans have had for
compromise.
Things, yeah.
There's always a compromise. So you said when you decided to get finished with that stressful job, you decided to do something else. When it came to you that I'm not going to keep working this hard, what did you decide you were going to do?
Well, I had a lot of bad ideas, as I've often done. I've been sort of like Winston Churchill said about America. You can always count on America to do the right thing once they've considered all other options or tried all the other possibilities. I had rummaged through some other possibilities in my mind, but finally wound up, again, maybe serendipitously, with somebody or some group of people influencing my advice, giving me advice and influencing it at the library. And it was really, in some ways, ideal for a person who'd always been sort of interested in books and a little bit of a nerd. And it also had some overlapping things with lawyering. The library is really at the core a very democratic little d institution like the courthouse is in theory. Everybody should have access to the courthouse. Everybody should have access to materials they want at the library or resources. And there are a lot of overlapping things like intellectual freedom. First Amendment issues are dear to lawyers, and they're also dear to librarians. We want people to be able to read what they want to read, write what they want to write.
Oh, we're going to talk about banning books later. Don't go there.
If the library doesn't have some books in it that offend everybody, then it's probably not a very big library. There ought to be things in the library that are bothersome to everybody. But that's what the library is for.
So you didn't go from private practice for yourself into the 2016 working for CALS, Central Arkansas Library System. You went to Wright Lindsay Jennings. Talk about high pressure.
Well, I was in a big firm at the Wright firm. I have lots of friends. They're great lawyers. And then I decided I was going to do a smaller firm where, you're a little more responsible for buying the paper clips and the legal pads. And
is that the Wilson Engstrom quorum? And you're a partner
and
there?
And I did that for about 20 years. And then I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to go to the law school in Fayetteville for an appointment for 2 years as a faculty member, practitioner.
Did you have to
on the
move up there?
faculty. Well, no, I had a good friend who had a condo I rented from him, and I would go up there on Sundays and work and teach and come back on Thursday nights. I still had my youngest son was still in
That's the
school.
perfect marriage. All right, this is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Nate Coulter, Executive Director for CALS, Central Arkansas Library System. Still to come. The library does a lot more than you may think. They don't just rent books. We'll be back after the break.
Back to you, Kerry.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking with Nate Coulter. He's the Executive Director for CALS, Central Arkansas Library System, serving Pulaski County and Faulkner County, did you say?
Pulaski and Perry.
Pulaski and Perry counties with like 5 big cities: Little Rock, North Little Rock, Jacksonville,
Sherwood,
Sherwood,
Maumelle,
Benton.
but not North Little Rock. They have a wonderful library, the Lehman Library, but they're not a part of the system.
I thought that was a typo when it was not in your bio. So the Lehman Library is not part of the Central Arkansas Library System.
Yeah, and that predates my leadership of the library, but I think in the late 90s when the system was formed with Maumelle, Sherwood, Little Rock, Jacksonville, Perryville, North Little Rock opted not to join that system for whatever reasons of wanting to have their own separate library. But they're a great library. They're just not part of the system.
Yeah. Well, before the break, if you're just tuning in, we talked about Nate growing up in Nashville, Arkansas, about his father, about his kids, and about going to Harvard Law and freezing his tail off up there in the north for 7 years or 6 years. But now and then we talked about him practicing being a trial lawyer and the stress of that. And I know from friends that do that, you're always on the egg. Every time you win a case, you're back on zero again. You're starting over. But now we're going to talk about the library system. But before I do, I want to mention that, didn't I read where you were a founding member of Our House?
I was. That was one of the great things. If you're a young lawyer, you've got time on your hands. All sorts of boards and community organizations are looking for volunteers in the form of a lawyer who will help. So yes, I was on the group that filed the Articles of Incorporation for Our House back in the mid-'80s, probably 86 or 87. A lot of great people working from different congregations. The Jewish Federation had a representative. The Episcopal Diocese did, the Catholic Diocese, and there were a lot of people of faith who were involved in that, and their theme was, we want to provide these services without conditioning it upon someone accepting our creeds or our practices. And the reason they did that was there was an ecumenical. The people who were involved in it didn't share all the same creeds, but they believed in the need to have some shelter of that kind. And
so tell people what it is, what Our House is.
Our House is a shelter that attempts to find people who need a place for shelter, need a place to live, and gives them an incentive to try to find work, to get jobs, to move into their own housing over some period of time. It's grown enormously. Ben Goodwin has done a tremendous job. They've launched a big building project. I think they've raised $14 or $15 million. They're expanding. They've really expanded. When we first started in 1985, I think it was in the old parish hall of St. Andrew's Catholic Church downtown on Louisiana Street. That building's no longer there. It moved for a short period of time, I think, into a building on Main Street, and then it landed out there where it is now.
On Roosevelt,
next to the old VA hospital. But the campus has expanded.
Is the VA hospital going to be part of their? Is that the building you're talking about?
Yes, I don't think that the hospital apparently has been purchased by a developer for some sort of retrofitting and maybe making condos out of it. But the shelter is a little east of the hospital.
So I was wondering, the retrofit of these apartments that are going to be there next to Our House, are they for people that are coming out of Our House, out of homelessness? And is it part of their moving on up and getting an apartment? Is it going to become that sort of a place?
I have not seen that. The only things I know are generally what I've read in the Arkansas Business or the Democrat Gazette, I guess. But I think that they're not really. I think that's a private investor, and Our House is a nonprofit. But Our House has a significant footprint down there, and they do take folks and families. That was the other emphasis that Our House was founded on, was we would take people off the street who had children and try to house them in ways that were stable for those kids. And the incentive was always to give them some stability
and skills,
give them a little bit of resting space to try to rehabilitate their employment possibilities, give them some hope, some process. And eventually, and I think there are lots and lots, hundreds and hundreds of success
Hundreds.
stories down there where people have achieved that. We have a program at the library that's related in some ways. We have a program for entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs who are under-resourced. And we had they had a person in this program last year who had come out of our house and had his own housing. He had a lawn care program, and he was learning in the entrepreneurial classes at the library how to grow his business. And he won some sort of, they had a contest for a business idea, and he won, and he was worked down there all the time. He was just, back to my point about you're sort of blessed at birth with your appetite for work, and some of us get a little more of that than others, but like my dad. But this man was very
ambitious
and was working his way out of being unsheltered and homeless into a place where he could have his own business. And what we also do is try to find folks who, they've got a job at the, I'm talking about the library program now, it's called Rocket Lab. They've got a
Rocket
job,
what?
Rocket Lab.
Rocket Lab.
They've got a job, but they've got, they're a single parent, they've got 2 kids, but they have a great idea. If they could just get a little mentorship, they get a little help, they get a little guidance, the kinds of things that lawyers who go to a new board for our house can give that board, they need that sort of help. So we have volunteers who come in and say, you need to perhaps buy this software program, come to the library and use it here to keep up with your books. And what they're looking for is just some encouragement, because as you know, starting a business can be very discouraging, and it's not a straight line to success.
It mostly comes from friends and family that help you.
Yes.
So if you don't have family,
I noticed where you had to get you had gotten
money from my
the
mother.
free to you were living rent free as long as you painted the place, right?
Yeah, in my first place when I moved out of my house, Mom said you can have this place for your business as long as you paint the place and take care of it.
Well, like your mom, if the library can give folks a chance to add $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 a year to their household income for a parent, single parent with 2 kids, that's just an enormous uplift. So we're trying to help folks in that realm. And I know that about your background because one of the great things the library does, which is a traditional function in a modern iteration, is the online encyclopedia, the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. And there is an entry this morning. I checked it out for Kerry McCoy. And so we have over 6,000 entries, and it's about people in Arkansas, places in Arkansas. If you can think of something interesting and a little bit odd, perhaps, that you've only heard about, the ghost on the railroad track in Clark County near Gurdon, there's an entry for that.
Oh, I'd like to read that.
There are all sorts of entries in the encyclopedia. It's online. So here's the thing. Libraries have always been places where you could look up things and get things, Now since we've all got one of these, we think, well, we don't need a library for that. That's not quite true. There's another side of that story. But here's a great resource.
And he's pointing to his phone, y'all.
His curator, that's right, I forget we're not on
We're not
TV.
on
That's
TV.
right, yeah.
Well, we kind of are. You could watch it on YouTube. But if you're listening on podcast,
If you're
right?
listening and you want to know something about someone in Arkansas's history, political, Civil War, modern history, like Kerry McCoy, you can go to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, the library's resource. It's a reference tool, but it's entirely digital. And what we learned during the pandemic was a lot of kids, as we know, were forced to learn remotely. And we can look at these analytics that showed once kids were out of school in March of 20, and we worked with teachers in schools to tell them about the EOA, the numbers went way up. And the heartening thing
What's
is
EOA stand for?
Encyclopedia of Arkansas.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
The numbers have stayed up. So what it tells us is that there was an absence of awareness of that resource. Once they were forced to do things online, and the library was helping to lead them there, they've continued to do it. So it's teachers love it, parents love it, students obviously love it.
I love it. I had no idea it came from Central Arkansas Library. I use it all the time, especially for guests that I'm about to interview. I'll look somebody up and I'll read all about them. I didn't know who kept that up. Y'all do.
And here's the good thing about the library keeping it up. Unlike Wikipedia, there is a sort of fact-finding, monitoring process that goes on. When someone submits, and I forget who wrote the piece for you or about you, but it gets reviewed and fact-checked by the staff of the library and edited for style and those sorts of things. So every entry that's in there has been essentially checked. And
Can you put your own entry in there? Can you submit yourself?
No. You can ask. You can. It happens fairly regularly. Guy Lancaster is the editor. He gets suggestions from people, and what he tries to do is, all right, well, do you have someone who would go author that for us? I think there was a recent example, perhaps maybe a former director of the Arkansas Arts Center, now the Museum of Fine Arts, Townsend Wolf.
Yes.
Said, there's not one for Townsend. So
What?
There was an effort to do that, I think. So yes, there are oftentimes, it's a good idea to suggest people who are missing or we need to add entries. I think it's still true that it's the largest online reference tool run by a public library. Most of the states who have these kinds of online encyclopedias are run by state universities or by the State History Commission in the case of Minnesota, for example. And I think ours is the second largest by number of entries to the one in Texas. So it's really a case of the public library punching above its weight.
If you were to rate your library on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to that of all the other libraries in the country, where would you put our library? 7?
I would say we're probably an 8. In some things we might be a 10, some things we might be a 6. And I think the thing that, and it's in spite of the personality who heads the library now in lots of ways. But here's the thing. People come to me, and this is sort of damning with faint praise, and as a native it bothers me a little bit, but the essence of it is good. They'll say, I moved here from Iowa, or I moved here from Washington State, or I moved here from Illinois. And I didn't really expect the public library in Little Rock to be as good as it is. It's as good as the library I left behind. So they're telling me in an objective, external way that my 8 is probably about right. We want to be a 9 or a 10. There's no resting. The other thing the external affirmation, last year in 2021, we were the Klein Community Impact Library of the Year. That was a national competition. We did get a $250,000 prize that we're spending on playground equipment. Did
you spearhead that? Did you have to write the application?
Staff did. I was involved, but I have great staff. Most of the successes that the library has of that sort are done by the staff. And as you said, I may be the face of the library, but the hard work gets done every day with the people who are in the front lines.
It's always that way, but they got to have a good leader. Before we talk about the library and how awesome it is and all the things it offers, which I think people are going to be surprised to find out that it's more than just books. We kind of touched on this in the last segment. You were the chairman for the Arkansas Bar Association, right, in Fayetteville? Or actually, you were no, that was separate. You were the chairman for the Arkansas Bar Association of Governors.
The leadership organization for the bar.
I don't even know what that is. But in 2012, you were appointed to the faculty of the University of Arkansas School of Law. And what I found really interesting in that, you said in the last segment that you spent four days up there, up in Fayetteville a week. But you established a walk-in clinic for homeowners facing foreclosure. This seemed like a little bit of a segue into what you're doing now, helping the public. Talk about how that came to be.
Yeah, that was probably an omen or a portent of where I was going to wind up. The dean of the law school in Fayetteville asked me if I would take this appointment, and the condition taking the 2-year appointment was that I needed to create a couple of things. They had gotten a settlement. The state of Arkansas was one of many states, I think there were 49, that got some funds out of the lawsuits that were filed nationally against the mortgage handling companies, who essentially, as we recall in the Great Recession, they were handing out loans to people who didn't have income to sustain those, and they were essentially giving them these teaser rates and then raising the interest. So there were a lot of litigation, monies paid by large mortgage handlers, and that money gets divided among the states. So the deans of the 2 law schools here got some of that from the Attorney General. The dean in Fayetteville says, let's set up a clinic and let's have some classes on mortgage finance for students. So what we did, I shopped around. I didn't know where to put it. We had students that we were teaching how to help counsel pro bono with my law license on top of it to supervise them. So where can we put this? We looked at the electric co-op building and some other places, and people were saying, go to the library, because everybody trusts the library. It's not got an agenda. If you get help at the library, they know it's just because that's what you have available. It's nobody wants to sell you anything. It's not
it's non-threatening.
It doesn't have an agenda. So we wound up in the library, the Fayetteville Library. It's a wonderful library. And we were there once a week with students giving advice to people who would come in. You could schedule it or you just walk in. And so that was an indication to me that turned out to be true when I got this job. The library is still this place where, for different reasons, different people in the community go there, and they all find something about it that is helpful and they trust it. And one of the great side effects of all that is if people are coming to some place like a park, a public library, for whatever reason, to walk your dog or to sit on a blanket or throw your Frisbee, and you're around other people who have a different background, that's a great thing. It's called social infrastructure. The library is a great part of that. The library draws people from all sections, all sectors of the community, and it's a heartening thing to see people appreciate the library. We live in a very polarized society. That's no secret. But one of the things that I think is heartening is that so many people trust and respect their public library. When we had a couple of ballot referenda, we got large majorities to support the library because everybody
When I started Arkansas Flag and Banner, there wasn't the internet because it was 1974 or 5. And so I had to go to the library to research. I can't remember the name of this big tome that I had to take off. This book was gigantic, and I had to take it down and put it on the table and flip to, it's like a Yellow Pages, and flip to where you could buy flags manufacturers, and found a flag manufacturer. Found a list of them that I could call. And it was you're right. I mean, it does so much. But funny thing about libraries, so my granddaughter found out that the internet was only 15, 20 years old, I guess now.
She thought it came down with Moses.
She just didn't know.
Tablets.
She's 16. She didn't know. It's always been there since she's around. And when she found that out, she asked my daughter, she said, well, how did y'all find anything out? And my daughter said, we went to the library, and she was aghast.
Oh, yeah. Or we just didn't. It's like,
we just didn't.
Yeah, right.
Well, the other thing...
How far away is the moon from the Earth? It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know either.
In
You just kinda don't know.
Oh, and you got encyclopedias.
Yeah, we had the World Book.
I still have
yes.
mine.
Had the
I still have
Britannica.
mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there were lots of communities where you could get a volume of the encyclopedia, one letter or 1 year if it was an annual summary, for making a deposit at the local bank or opening an account. I think my parents just bought a set of the World Book encyclopedia.
Absolutely. And paid it off over a
Yes,
6-month or a 1-year payout. All right, we're going to take a really quick break. And then we are going to come back, and we really are going to talk more about the library and the things that you can use at the library. It's kind of amazing. We'll continue our conversation with Mr. Nate Coulter. He's the Executive Director of the Central Arkansas Library System in downtown Little Rock. We'll be right back. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Nate Coulter of Central Arkansas Library System, CALS, in downtown Little Rock. Before the break, we talked about his illustrious, is that the right word for your career as a trial lawyer? And Nate's just a good storyteller. If you're just tuning in, you should go back and listen to him. He's a good storyteller. He's good at the library. That's a good place for him. So now we're going to talk about the library. You were on the Board of Trustees before you became the ED, the Executive Director. But the library has as their mission to provide resources and services to help residents reach their full potential and to inspire discovery, learning, and cultural expression. There's 15 libraries you oversee with a service area of 340,000 people in the cities of Jacksonville, Maumelle, Perryville, Sherwood, and Little Rock, Arkansas. As the Executive Director, you are in charge of the budget, the fundraising, and the programming for the system. So how does the library get funded? Millage rate? Grants?
Yes, both, but primarily from local property taxes. About 92% of our money, we have a budget now of between $23 and $24 million for operations, 325 employees, 15 buildings that you described in communities all over the county. The bulk of that money is coming from local property taxes. What I've said, and many people before me, is the library really is your best illustration of local control. If we do what we say we aspire to do, and we provide resources that help people reach their potential, then people will make that investment. If we don't, or if we tell you we're going to build something or provide something and we either do it in a poor way or we don't do it, then people will rightly say, well, wait a minute, we made this bargain to give you our tax dollars and you didn't deliver. And we are now getting more and more money from philanthropy, from grants, and that's a great thing. People are generous and they invest in things like the Rocket Lab that I mentioned earlier.
Do you do fundraisers?
We don't have a lot of fundraisers.
I've never seen the library do a fundraiser to speak of.
We will send out a year-end request for people to donate, and people are generous about that. What we do, though, in I think a more efficient way than we have been until recently, we look for opportunities for people to couple their interests with something the library can do. Let me give you an example. We started from scratch a math tutoring program during the pandemic. We got a generous grant from the Walton Family Foundation and essentially had 40 or 50 tutors, volunteers who were doing it by Zoom virtually with students from grades 6 through 12 in schools all across the county, charter schools, public schools, private schools, and you just had to sign up. And the response we got from both tutors and the parents of these children who were lagging in math was phenomenally encouraging. People respond when you ask them, look, would you support something like that? The Walton Foundation funded that for a couple of years, and then we found other funders. And once you start something and it works and you've got metrics and evidence to show that it's successful, people will help you do it. And so that's the public-private partnership that we're proud of. The public is all in with the tax money that they give us, but we look for ways to leverage that with private donations, and we are in a community where people believe in a lot of things we do.
You have a $20 million budget.
It's $23 million now.
That's a lot of money to manage.
It is.
Describe your day.
Well, one of the great fortunes I have, the blessings that I should be particularly mindful of this time of year, is that I have a extremely talented chief financial officer, a CPA named Joe Spencer. We have run the budget frugally, efficiently, like my dad would have been proud of in his small town. My dad used to say, son, there's no difference in another dollar earned or a dollar you save. They're going to both add $1 to your bottom line. So we do take seriously our obligation to be good stewards of the public's money. We treat it as though it's ours. And we have a comprehensive budget that we prepare about this time every year. The board reviews that, get a long memo explaining different things, and we just stay on that budget throughout the year.
It's hard to stay on budget.
It is. We have about 68 cents out of every dollar for staff, and so that's obviously with every organization.
You have 300 employees.
Yeah, that's
or more.
what drives, so we try to be, we want to pay a living wage. We want to take care of people because people don't go to work for the library to make money. They go because they're interested in service and they're interested in education and literacy.
So let's speak about why you go to the library. You can rent. It's not about books. You can rent toys, telescopes, tools, hotspots. What else can you rent?
Well, it is about books. It always will be. But it's
Seeds.
these other things. Seeds. We have a seed library down at McMath. We have a tool library down at D.
How do you
Brown.
return seeds? You put them in the ground?
Well,
how do you return those?
It's a grow something. If you feel inspired, bring us back some seeds from your pumpkin patch or from your tomatoes.
Aw.
So it's a revolving door of seeds, and we catalog them. There's the old school book catalog, book card catalog is down at McMath, and you can go in there, and the seeds are in alphabetized
Do you
order.
alphabetize your spices at home?
I do not. And I never put them back in the same place.
Oh, I bet your wife hates that.
Yeah, she's sometimes obsessive about organized, and I'm not. So it's a problem.
You're at the library? Don't tell our listeners that you're not obsessive about organizing.
But I have people who are. That's what I told
Yeah,
you
you're
earlier.
right.
It's I'm just I get a lot of credit I don't deserve because I'm at the top of an organization that has 325 fantastic people, from the people who mow and cut the grass and prune the
So you went back and
shrubs.
you're a lifelong learner. You went back and got another degree.
Yes, the library encouraged, the board required essentially that I get a library science degree.
Oh, really?
My law degree was nice, but that wouldn't get it done, so I had to go get an online library science degree from a ALA, American Library Association.
What do you learn? How to categorize books? I mean, what do you learn at the library? They make you read all the old classics?
No, they talk to you about things that are essential for libraries to function. They talk to you about what the library of the 21st century is doing. They talk to you about some of the basic things that are old school, how cataloging works. Every book has to get handled, it has to get ordered, it has to get processed, it has to get put on a shelf in a certain location. So there's a lot of what librarians call tech services, the back of the house aspects. It's like any other business. You've got front of the house customer related things, the library does. You've got your back of the house things where you're dealing with financing and accounting. So all those things in a kind of whirlwind.
These are the things that you learned working in every department on the
Yes.
way up in the
Yeah, I
flag
did,
business.
boy, yeah.
If you come at it from a different angle, I would imagine that
Yeah.
wanting to understand how the library works on a more intricate level would be pretty key.
Well, there were times when I didn't really appreciate having to do it. A good friend of mine, Fred Ursay, was on the board at the time, and I would see Fred at church, and he would say, "How's that library science class going that I'm making you take?" And I said, "Oh, Fred, I come home, I eat supper with my wife, I sometimes exercise, and then I've had a glass or two of wine with supper. Then I got to go to the computer and start reading these not so exciting sometimes articles for my classes." But I did it.
Well, you're a lawyer. You've got practice at reading awful, boring,
Tedious,
terrible
yes,
stuff. That's why I could never be a lawyer.
I tell young people there's a lot about lawyering that is not captured in Hollywood or television stories about lawyering. But you're right. It's now about a lot of things, not just the books. But telescopes. You can check out a telescope. You can get toys. You can get tools. You can get seeds, as you mentioned. And
did Amazon hurt your business?
No. I think it's.
Did you think when Amazon started selling books online, did you think, oh, here we go?
Some people, and I've been in this camp, are impatient. If a new book comes out, they just go buy it. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of friends who can afford to buy libraries worth of books. I say, look, you ought to go to the library because you can listen to audiobooks instead of doing Audible for $15 a month for free. You can get current release audiobooks if that's your thing.
Can you do it from your home with the library? If you buy a library membership, you can download
you can download. If you live in the service area, you have a membership, you just download the books on your tablet, or you download them to your device if you want to listen to them.
Why didn't everybody do that? Why do we even use Amazon Audible? You can do that.
Oh, because I've got friends like this. Sometimes it's just a little more until they have cleared the learning curve about how to use the book. But here's the great thing. The library is about all these things you described. It's a library of things, books, but it's also a library of helping people. And we've got, again, thanks to a grant from Wingate, we have now what we call digital guides. I call them digital navigators. These are two fantastically talented young people who, if you have trouble with anything on your device, or you want to know how to do Excel, or you're having trouble, a lot of people my age are not as tech savvy, and they'll come to the library and they'll get help. And they send me these wonderful thank yous by email, or they'll leave messages saying, Jacob or Camille are just fantastic. No thing was too small. They talked to me respectfully, and they helped me. I've now got this. So part of the problem is just the learning curve for people who are my age, and they don't want to fiddle with it. They know how to order things from Amazon or Audible. But if you will bear with it and get some help, it's going to save you money in the long haul. And the good thing is, if there's a book that you think your library should have and we don't have it, we're generally pretty responsive. Tell us about it. We'll try to get it. Because as I said earlier, we want to have books for everybody. That means if your interest is aviation or gardening or porcelain dolls or whatever it is, if there's something you want to read about, we'll try to help you find what you want.
Can you rent costumes?
We don't have a costume room, but we do have a prom dress giveaway or circulation. You can get prom dresses that people wear those once. And so we've got a librarian over at McMath who several years ago decided she was going to get people to donate their old prom dresses.
How about wedding dresses?
I don't know. No. I guess you could make something of the prom dress into a wedding dress. But
how do people find out all the stuff you do?
Go to CALS.org and just surf around. If you need help to figure out how to do that, call the library and we'll get Jacob or Camille or somebody to help you.
You mean you can call the library and get somebody on the phone? That's a new concept. Yeah. You can call people?
Yes, you also can go online and send us Ask CALS. You can go send us an email. And
do you still have a homeless problem of people coming and you have a background in homelessness because you helped fund our house. But in the old days, I know that a lot of people that were homeless used to go to the library and kind of sit in the air conditioning and read.
Yes, and the society has a homeless problem. The community has a homeless problem, and obviously the library doesn't pick and choose. We don't ask to see your 1040 or your W-2 when you come to the library. If you come to the library, you come to the library. There are a couple of rules. One rule is you have to behave. You can't disturb other people. And the second rule is if you can't follow Rule 1, then you have to leave. But people who, as you say, need to be out of the elements are in the library oftentimes when the doors open. One of the things that and I think we have a good reputation of treating those people like we treat everybody, which is part, again, the library's institution of respecting people no matter who you are. But one of the things that we face coming up is that thanks to the generosity of the taxpayers, they have reauthorized some bonds, lowered the tax in doing it, but they're going to get an upgrade to the downtown library. It's been 25 or so years.
The downtown library is 25 years old?
Yes, it hadn't had a lot of investment since then, so we need to upgrade it. We're going to make it nicer. But in order to do that, the builders, the architects will say, you really need to close. So we're going to close it for probably about a year, next year, probably not till the middle of the year, so we've got time to plan. But one of the things we're trying to plan for is where will the people go you described who seek shelter from the heat or the cold in the library? We don't want to leave them literally out in the cold, so we're going to try to find someplace near there that's accessible by transportation or that they can walk. So we're working on that. We obviously are not just going to close the building and tell people, see you on the other side. We're going to provide ways for people to still get their books and all the resources that they get that are tangible, all the things that they get from the library. And of course, they'll still be able to do all of the digital things online.
But buying books, they'll run you out of your house if you buy a book every time you want one. We bought that. We have a neighbor next door, and he went through 5 iPads full of books, completely full. And we were like, you can delete them and put new ones on there. He's like, no, I want to keep all 5 of my.
In case you ever wants to go back and look something up.
And his house you walked through his house and there were so many books. We actually called the Central Arkansas Library System and they came and got a bunch. You can just get too many.
Yeah,
and the library solves that problem.
People treat their books like part of like a pet or their family or their security around the things that they're familiar with, they like. One of the problems with that, and I'm not...
Well, it's hard to throw a book away.
It is, and that's what I'm going to say. That we find over and over and over, people don't want to part with their books, and they want the library to take them, and it feels better than taking the library.
Do you do that?
Yes. We get scores of boxes of books every week downtown, and we're happy to take them. But here's what that means for the library. This is, again, a service. We get those books, and, the library doesn't put old books on the shelves that were my books or your books, but we will find a way to either sell those at our used book sale. We've got one going on right now down in the basement at the main library. People love those. It's sort of a program. People just like showing up. You can buy books for 50 cents. Somebody else's hand-me-down book. So we do that. The ones that we don't sell or can't sell, we send to a recycling company. So it's a service again. I've said sort of half-jokingly that it's hard when your relative dies to just take their library to the recycling bin or to take their library to the dumpster. You just can't do it. But if you take it to the library and you think that some part of those books will get repurposed or used by someone else, you feel a bit better about the legacy of your
We have the
relative.
same problem with flags.
Yes.
People bring us flags constantly so that we will dispose of them correctly because they cannot stand to do it because it's their dad's flag.
I had them in the mudroom of my house that I knew were tattered. They'd worn out. I'd replaced them, but I couldn't do anything with them.
No. So they bring that. We have the same thing. Six Bridges Book Festival. What's that?
Just finished it. It's an annual program where we bring authors and presenters, local and national, to the community to celebrate books and reading, and people show up and get to ask authors questions, and some of them are virtual. But it's a great thing to remind people that even if you can't go someplace, literally, you can go someplace by a book. And there are all sorts of books that are about all sorts of
How many libraries are in Little Rock?
There are 8 libraries in Little Rock.
That you maintain. Is the Hillary Clinton Library?
That's a children's library over on 10th and Jefferson.
That is a beautiful
library. It's a wonderful library.
Yeah, it's a children's library.
There is also, back to your point about other things, we have a greenhouse over there that kids can see plants growing. We have inside the library there is a live active beehive. The bees, we've engineered a way for the bees to get inside a little pipe that they're smart enough to figure out, and they come in. We learned after we did it the first year or two that you have to actually put a cloth over that most of the time. Kids can pull it up and take a peek at the 20,000 bees and the queen in this hive, but the bees didn't like it if it weren't dark in there most of the time. But it's fascinating for kids to see the bees. There are all sorts of things.
It's like a discovery museum.
We have a kitchen there.
It's really
we do
cool.
things that we teach. Sometimes we have cooking matters classes where we teach parents how to shop for healthier
And then there's a
diet.
Sid McMath museum. Library.
Yes, that's on McMath. That's a very
Traditional?
robust library. Traditional
Library.
It has a big following. It's down on Barrow Road.
So speaking of your library square in downtown Little Rock, there's the main library that we keep talking about
Right.
that you're going to close for a little while. And then there's the Ron Robinson Theater. I didn't know that was part of the library system.
Oh.
Yes.
Did you, Gray?
315 seat, state-of-the-art facility for
Bobby
movies and
Roberts
music.
Library of Arkansas History and Art.
That's the archive, the special collections, the things that people donate to the library to preserve are in there. We have some art in there. It's just next door to the theater and just across Rock Street from the main library.
Gallery and bookstore at the library square.
On the corner of President Clinton Avenue.
So you can
and
buy,
Rock.
that's like gifts.
We have used books are in there.
That's gifts for
and
Christmas.
Art, things that are made by Arkansans in there.
And then the lab resource, Rocket
Rocket
local
Lab,
inspiring, and that's all on your website that you can
There's
find
a
it on.
co-working space there for people, young entrepreneurs, and we teach an academy class there with local instructors.
I love it.
None of that, by the way, will
What?
close. The only thing that'll be closed will be the big old main library that has those names that you liked around the top of it. And the architects are working now. We may have some surprises for that, so we'll see.
All right, this is a great place to take a break. We'll come back. This is our last break. We'll come right back to finish our conversation with Mr. Nate Coulter, Executive Director of CALS, Central Arkansas Library System. I'm going to ask him about banning the books. It will be his last question in the next break. We'll be right back. Don't come. Your ears hurting? Come on, we're going back.
Good, I'm ready.
Okay. You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Nate Coulter from CALS, Central Arkansas Library System in downtown Little Rock. But before the break, we talked about all the things the library does. It's amazing. You should go to cals.com and see everything there. It's great. And, there's the children's museum, children's library that I thought was interesting. They had beehives. It's almost like a discovery museum at the Children's Library. What's the name of that library again?
Children's Library and Learning Center, the Hillary Rodham Clinton Children's Library
There
and
you
Learning
go.
Center.
It's a good one if you've got kids. Let's talk about banning books. What's your opinion about all the book hullabaloo that's going on all the time? Look, it gets so serious.
If you go back in time, there have been periods in the history of libraries and humans where, for a variety of reasons, people had urges like this to take things away. Let's not read things that trouble some of us. Let's not think about things that trouble some of us.
Has the Bible ever been banned?
Yes, and there are lots of things that you would consider to be important in the Bible that could be banned by some of the standards of book banners. What's ultimately prevailed, and I think will again, is the notion that the library director doesn't decide, the school board doesn't decide, the librarians don't decide, and people in the community don't decide what other people or other people's children should read. A public library is, by its very definition, an accumulation with public resources of the written words, the expressions of a variety of people on a variety of topics from a variety of perspectives. And we don't look at the content and decide, well, we like this person's view and not that person's, so we'll just buy this person's books. Mm-hmm. We buy books. If there's, as I just said a few minutes ago, if there's something you're interested in and you want to read about, let us know. And so it's not healthy in the community, we think, that for an organization that tries to serve everybody in the community.
Can anybody ban books? Does the legislature ban a book? Is that the only way you could get a book banned?
Well, there are federal cases interpreting the First Amendment that have some application here, that you are entitled to read things, you're entitled to express things as an author. The issue of whether the public funding entitles the public to limit what people read is the question, I guess. And I think in community after community, most people don't think that we can anoint somebody to decide what the rest of us read. That's just not a democratic little d way we operate. We let people read what they want to read. Mm-hmm. It's a freedom issue. It's the freedom to read what you want to read. And the library does not pick and choose based on the content what we think you ought to read. Back to my story about that dear teacher who sent me thinking about where I should go to college. A lot of the books we check out every day are not books that Miss Bird would have been wanting me to read in high school. And they're not the fine literature that she wanted me to read. You know, I just recently checked out a book about her favorite poet. There's a new biography on John Donne, this 16th century, 17th century British poet. And Miss Bird loved John Donne. She used to quote his poetry, unless a man's grasp exceed his reach, what's the reason for a heaven? So Miss Bird would love books like that. But she would not like lots and lots of books.
Harry Potter, she wouldn't like Harry Potter.
No, probably not. But Miss Bird doesn't get to decide. Nate Coulter doesn't get to decide. Kerry McCoy doesn't get to decide. Gray doesn't get to decide what everybody else should read. We just provide it. If you want to read it, read it. If it bothers you, don't read it. And we absolutely encourage people to be aware of what their kids are reading. If you don't want your kids reading certain books, then you have every right to do that, and the library will partner with you in trying to help you. We have information we can provide you about the online access for your kids, and we will help you, guide you, tell you how to be involved in that and make decisions that you want to make for your child.
Mm-hmm.
But we just don't want you to make it for my
Everybody.
child or somebody else's
right.
child.
So you urged Ernie Dumas to write his book, one of my favorite books. He is a great guy. Tell us about that.
What a great interview.
Yes, Ernie is a master of Arkansas stories, and he knows a lot of stories about Arkansas politics. And he
You put him to the test.
We had been encouraging him to write his book for a while. Bobby, my predecessor, had done it, and he just couldn't get around to it. So I got the idea that I would talk to Elaine, his wife, and said, "Look, we're going to pay Ernie in advance a nice little grant."
Guilt him into doing it.
And she said, "Yes, we have a big trip planned. I'm going to make him do that." So Ernie listened. The other funny story, I'm sure he told you if you interviewed him, was we were proceeding on the assumption he was going to do it, but he hadn't started. And some friend of his is playing golf with him and says, "Hey, Ernie, I saw in the Arkansas Press, U of A Press, that they're coming out with your book." He said, "Really?" They have some sort of promotional piece they send out months and months in advance of what's coming out. He said, "Really?" He said it scared him. He said, "I hadn't even started on that book." So he worked tirelessly and he cranked out the book, and it's a wonderful story of a collection of stories about people who were significant in Arkansas history in the second half of the 20th century.
So he was a reporter for
Arkansas Democrat Gazette
for 6 or 7 decades, like we were talking about, and boy, he knew every governor. He was really good. So to wrap it up, what's the best thing you think the library does?
The best thing the library does is help people find what they want to find to get wherever they think they need to get, whether it be a class, whether it be help on digital technology, whether it's
Do
a
they have
movie.
Classes?
We have classes down at the library.
On what? Learning to sew? I need you to teach people
I
to
think
sew.
you can do that in Jacksonville at our branch over there. We do have sewing machines, but you can.
Can you
find
rent
what
sewing machines?
I think you can check out some of the portable sewing machines maybe in Jacksonville, but yes, we will help you figure out what it is you think you want to enhance and enrich your life, whether it's cultural awareness, whether you want to go to a movie, or you want to go to a concert. We'll help you.
I need to call over there and see if they've got any seamstresses to help me sew flags, because that's a dying art form. I've never thought about that.
Yes, we have an expert over there on the staff.
But that's worth this whole interview right
Jacksonville. It's the Nixon Library, named after a woman who worked there years and years ago
on
Main Street in Jacksonville.
So how do people connect with the library? They can call you, go online?
Yes, they can call 918-3000, or they can go to CALS.org. They can find us. We've got Twitter. We've got all the social media that younger people follow.
What's the benefit of becoming a member?
Well, if you have a card, you can use the access online to things. If you have the card, you can use the barcode number to get online and get stuff that we discussed.
And you can get a membership card online?
Well, you can get a card for free if you live in the taxing area.
Oh.
And if you don't live in the taxing area, you can get a card if you pay $54 or $5 a year. And we do that because the people who pay all the freight charges that I've been describing for all these wonderful things, it's only fair to them if the people who aren't paying those taxes pay some amount. And we tried to figure out what we thought was fair. Mm-hmm. And so you can, and a lot of people in Garland County are.
So you get a membership card, you got a barcode.
You get a library card.
You got a key to the castle.
Yep, you got a key to all this stuff that is your library. You're paying for this, and we encourage you to use it. And as you say, people every day say, "Wait a minute, I didn't know the library did that. I can get that from the library." If you've got kids who are trying to study for SAT or ACT, there are things on the library's website to do that. Mm-hmm. One of the great things we did with Mike Poore when he was here, and this was his idea, we just helped. He decided, he'd done this in Bentonville, he decided, let's give every kid in every school in the Little Rock School District access to the library's digital portal. So we said, sure, how can we do that? Don't worry about whether they need a library card because you have to have an address. So don't worry about it. Just go to the schools, and if the school wanted to do it, we give every student a separate digital card. It wouldn't let them come to the library and check out books, but it would let them get online to our website and use all these databases that the library subscribes to. Databases about how to take tests, databases about all kinds of things that might foreign language help. And students loved it, teachers loved it, parents loved it. So it was so successful, we piloted it at 4 or 5 schools. It then became district-wide. We made it available to all the schools, Little Rock Catholic schools, PA, Episcopal, all the schools, charter, public, private. And most of them say, that's a great deal for our kids. We'll do that. And the students love it. So that's one thing you get. If you're a library card holder,
You get that.
you get that. If you're a student in one of the schools in the county, you get what we call the tech card. So they don't necessarily have to be a library card holder, but they get access to all the things that we subscribe to. One of the great things
That's great.
we have, it's sort of like what you were talking about calling the library. We subscribe to something that essentially allows you to ask questions and get homework help from a panel of people. I think this service is out of Philadelphia or somewhere. So if you have a science problem or a trig problem and you want help, the library can help you find somebody who will try to understand the problem, try to tutor you, if you will. And it's just amazing the kinds of things. And a lot of those things are not cheap, as you would imagine. But we think if you amortize the cost of it across the entire 344,000 people you mentioned earlier, and people are using it, then people's lives are enriched. We're helping them reach their potential of being better students, of learning more, of getting a better job, and that's what we're about.
That is a great place to take a break. I mean, to end the show. That's a great place to end the show.
Thank you for letting me be here and go on
Oh,
and
that,
on.
I mean, that is what you're all about. So I have you a gift. It's a desk set.
Oh, boy.
I
All
know,
right.
of the U.S. and Arkansas flag. 'Cause
Wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know if you have one down there at the library or not.
One of the things when I got there was to explore how we could get a flagpole at the library.
I love that.
And it had apparently been, Bobby Roberts was in the Navy, and he wanted to do one of these, thank you, these nautical flags where you have three flags.
Oh, yeah, nautical flagpole. Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to stick that thing on the roof and make it stable and wind was going to cost a lot of money. But now that we're doing this remodel, we'll look for a place where we can do it at less expense. Because I told you we're good stewards. We don't like to spend your money.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're
I'll put this on
welcome.
my desk.
Oh, good. Thank you. In closing, I want to say to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your life, your independence, or your business. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the picture of Kerry's face in the center of the screen. For more of Kerry's interviews, click either video on the right of the screen. And as always, thank you for watching.